Hi, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. You're with Craig Hamilton Parker, your psychic medium, who's going to look into my psychic predictions, my thoughts about the future, particularly at the moment with the British economy and the recent change of leadership with Liz Truss becoming Prime Minister of the UK. So join me now for Coffee with Craig. Well, hi again. And if you're wise enough to subscribe already to this channel, you'll know that these Coffee with Craig sessions are done live. And you can join me and chat and ask me questions about various things about the psychic world. And people are joining me now as I'm going live. But I'm first going to give you a few insights, a few thoughts about the future, a few thoughts about what's happening, particularly here in Britain at the moment. Although, of course, I will also cover lots of worldwide things as well, as we usually do, because the world is an interconnected place, isn't it? And we, whatever happens in one place happens in another, as we learned so hard with COVID. Right. Okay. Liz Truss has recently now become the Prime Minister of the UK, announced today that she'd won her fight against Rishi Sunak. And I, of course, I, of course, predicted it. I did actually. I predicted it right at the beginning, early on, just when Liz was just an outsider. So we maybe would sort of share some thoughts about Liz Truss and what I think is going to happen with her. And also what's going to happen with the British economy too, because I've also talked a lot about that at the beginning of the year. So just a few first thoughts about Liz Truss. And I'm going to come in a little bit later before I say that. Also I've done some, I cast the I Ching Oracle, and I'm going to share some of the thoughts with that as well, which I think you might find interesting. It's sort of a new way I've doing things here. Right, now, Liz Truss. I don't know how you feel about it. I personally feel that she strikes me as a bit weak, even though I saw her becoming the leader. I still think she's quite a weak person. I think you're going to find that, and it's already happening, but you're going to find that a lot of the Tory party are going to be hankering to have Boris Johnson back. And you remember I said before Johnson went that he'll be back, and then he more or less hinted it when he left power. And I think we'll find him trying to push his way in again into politics and trying to have a very strong influence over Liz Truss. And I think he thinks that he can have a lot more sway over her than he thinks, because I think you're going to find that Liz Truss is going to be quiet but strong. Although my initial personal feelings about her is that she seems a very weak sort of person, my thoughts are that she may actually be a lot stronger than we give her credit for, because at this time, really, with an absolute hot potato being handed to her with the British economy and the energy crisis, you really do need someone who's going to be able to make very bold decisions, I suppose is the word for it. You've got to be bold when you're faced with, desperate situations require desperate means, as I've often found in my own life sometimes, sometimes you can't pussyfoot around when you've got real dangers and problems going on in your life. And it's the same in politics. We can't be deciding these things by agendas and committees and what's the nicest way to do things. I think we do need strong leadership. And I think we'll find that Liz Truss will assert her power quite quickly. And I think she might even give. I mean, she's not elected. I haven't seen the news for a few hours or so, but I know she's today really. But she's obviously going to sort of suggest her cabinet soon. I'll probably do something separate on that. But I think Johnson might get a position there, but he's not going to be in a position of power. She's not going to let him decide the agenda. Again, he might try to fight back again later, and I think he might try to make another move for becoming prime minister again later. But he thinks that Liz Truss is much weaker than she is, and actually I think she's going to assert her power and be a lot stronger than we expect. So that's my first thoughts about her. Well, obviously already been announced that there's going to be a big package for the energy things. Now it's very gloomy, this whole worldwide energy crisis that we've got, because we blame it all on the Russia-Ukraine war, you know, and I know the Americans are going to fight to the last Ukrainian over that war, and all this international interference that's making this war kind of into something that's probably a lot more than we think it is. It is fight to Ukraine. I quite like that one. I think it's going to be. I think we're going to. What we're seeing here is the weakness of everything, really, because I mean, Russia is not the big supplier to the UK, for example, and she's not supposed to be the main supplier to Europe. But we take just one oil supplying country out of the equation, the whole lot collapses, you know, and the energy prices go through the roof. With I don't know, those people in America that join us, we're getting astronomical projected price increases for energy. It's like mortgages, you know, it's like you pay more for your heat than you do for your house, and that's obviously not a situation that can be sustained. Now, I have had a lot of thoughts about this with energy, and I've said it before, that I think there's going to be something unexpected on the energy front, positive, you know, and we're not talking about, you know, putting solar power panels all over the Sahara or something. I get the feeling there's something new coming. You know, I know the scientists have been kind of working on this idea that you can get energy out of nothing, you know, that I think they call it 0 point energy, that you can actually, the universe is energy, and you could, in theory, through cold fusion or fission, be able to get unlimited amounts of energy. I think we're going to not necessarily crack that, but we're going to crack some new development in energy production, because the minds of the world must be working on this at the moment. And I think wherever we put our attention on grows in strength, and the world's thoughts are focused on this. So it gives me the feeling that as if the universe can give us something, you know, and I have a very positive feeling that something soon is going to pop up with energy that's going to revolutionize the way we think about it. Whether we can bring that sort of technology in quickly or not, but it may make us rethink about whether we really do need to build new nuclear power stations and so forth here in the UK. But at the beginning of the year, you remember, I said this was, I wish I wouldn't make these predictions. It makes me wonder if I make them come true sometimes, because I said at the beginning of the year, we're going to have a year of absolute massive inflation worldwide, and particularly here in the UK. And I think the actual words I used, I haven't had time to look through all the videos, but I used something to the effect of saying that it's going to be like it was like the winter of our discontent. You know, wasn't it Callaghan that was in charge then? And we had all the rubbish in the streets. And during those periods, we had people striking. We had the docks on strike. We had the railways on strike. We had the airlines on strike. We had the doctors on strike. We had the nurses on strike. We had terrible problems. And I said that would happen this year. I said I saw it all, postal strikes and everything. I said would be the first. It's happened and is happening. It's here now. Where will that go? Because I think it's going to get a bit worse. I think because when people are out of money, everybody then scrambles to the pot to get their maximum they can get. So whoever holds the biggest gun over everybody's head, you know, I'll switch the power off unless you give me a pay rise. I'll shut all the trains down unless you give me a pay rise. We'll let people die in hospital unless you give me a pay rise. You know, the money tends to go to those with the most clout, and of course the people at the bottom of the ladder, the pensioners, the unemployed, and the rest of them all go without. But then that also creates civil unrest as well. So I think we're going to see some pretty difficult times ahead. I mean, it don't take a psychic to tell you that, but I did see it early, way before it happened. So perhaps there's some insights from this early on. And like I said, I don't see everything clearly, but I did see that coming. And I also said, and this hasn't happened yet, but I did say at the same time, I felt as if there's going to be a lot of repossessions and a crash in the housing market. Now, that has not happened. In fact, house prices are going up. But I get the feeling we're going to see some sort of balancing out of all that. And I think we're going to get some problems with the housing market. So I'm seeing that. And I think I see something happening also in the City of London, something completely new. I get a sense it might be something like taking the power back from the Bank of England, that politics can control it rather than the governor of the Bank of England. I see him reeling this back in, that we've got things we've got to do. And I'm also seeing not full nationalisation, but I'm seeing this would be completely crazy under a Thatcher-minded Tory government. But I'm also seeing there's maybe something in the electrical thing, as electrics or something like that, where there's a temporary nationalisation of an industry. It might be that they step in on something with this big word with a capital T, temporary nationalisation. I personally think that it would be nice if we did nationalise basic things that we can't do without. We cannot do without water. We cannot do without power. And there's certain things I think are essential that should be nationalised. Well, they didn't work as a nationalised industry, but they, again, sometimes do we have any option? Because they don't work with the powers of greed in control, do they? What do you think? These bigger the organisations get, the worse they seem to be. So that's some first thoughts on that. So my thoughts with Liz Truss. Now, like I said, there's something like 18.5% rise in inflation predicted. Now, that's massive. That really is massive if that does come about. I don't think it'll be quite as bad as that, though, because I get the sense that we're going to we're going to find some wiggle room. And like I said, I think there's going to be this sort of energy breakthrough is something I feel. And I think Liz Truss actually, although we need a strong leader, at the moment she unites everybody because most people don't like her. So we're all of the same opinion. I think the electorate. That's my thoughts anyway. And I think I don't know. What do you think about Liz Truss? If you're here from UK, what do you think? Let's have some comments. What do you think she'll do? How do you think she'll handle things? But I think she will become a lot more of a harmonious, bridging sort of person in a funny sort of way. Everything in my bones, what I think about her is, when I think about it logically, I think, no, that can't be the case. But I get the sense that I'm wrong with what my mind says, and that my gut feeling tells me that I think she's actually going to be able to build a lot of bridges, and also is going to be kind of able to negotiate. I'm seeing a new deal with Scotland, which kind of doesn't give Scotland more independence. It gives it less. But I get the sense that she's going to tie some economic help to giving the Scottish electorate more of a British feel. It might be something like we might be seeing the closing down of something like BBC Scotland or something with media or something like that, where we try to make Scotland a bit more feeling that we're all in the same boat here, guys. We've got to bail out. This isn't going to be immediately, but I just get the feeling strange because she was really anti. She went straight for Nicola Sturgeon, didn't she? I said we're not going to listen to her even. Don't give her airspace. She's an attention seeker. Actually, that's probably on some ways quite a good analysis. But I mean, obviously, that's not going to build bridges. But I think they will find some mutual ground here that everybody's going to work together, because I think we're going to have a very difficult economic time ahead. Now, before I take some of your questions, which I'm going to come to in a moment, I also did something else. Now, those of you that have had kind of readings with me by email, have the audio readings and so, will know that I often use the I Ching, old Chinese oracle, to ask questions, and use that sometimes as a stepping point to give you clairvoyance. So I thought, well, I think I might use the I Ching today and ask it what it says about the British economy. Now, we usually use this old Chinese oracle. It's a 5,000-year-old oracle. Those that don't know about it, it's a Taoist oracle. It comes from Taoism, from ancient China. It's where it gives this whole idea of yin and yang, and the way life is in a constant change. And it tries to bring us back always to what we call the Tao, which you could call it the Dharma. You could call it the middle way. You could call it the center of existence. You could call it the center of the cyclone. It can't be expressed. It can't be described. But I always see it as like, the place we're meant to be, the center, the balance, the point of equilibrium. So in all situations, the I Ching tries to help us find our path, and it doesn't judge anything as being good or bad. The hexagrams are all neutral, and each time it gives us a wise way to go through the situation. Now, in ancient China, at the time of the emperors, and right back in the earliest days of ancient China, the I Ching was used, and it was used right through up until the time of Chairman Mao, to decide matters of state and whether to go to war or not. Major decisions. And although when I cast the I Ching, it only takes me a short time, they used to spend days of ritual and weeks of rituals to consult the Ching. And they used to use the heating of tortoise shells, and the cracks shown in tortoise shells actually was the way it was originally done. And from that, a hexagram would have been developed to know where we're going for the future. So I thought, well, it's okay, it's appropriate to ask a question. And the question I asked is, what will happen to the British economy? So when I cast the Ching, we get what we call a hexagram. Now, hexagram's made up of 6 yin and yangs. Some of those yin and yang lines are maybe what we call changing. So they're changing from yin to a yang, or a yang to a yin. And we represent them as lines, broken lines and straight lines, and we stack them from the bottom up, because the Chinese write from the bottom up, until we get what we call a hexagram. And they're divided into 2 groups of 3 trigrams. All right, so that's enough of the technical stuff. So we get a hexagram, and the hexagram we get is called sung, and it means conflict. We have above the trigram that represents heaven, and that's a creative energy. And below it, we have the trigram that represents water, which is the abysmal. The water is seen, it will plunge any depth, it will fill abysses, it will fill it's thorough as well. But it's also the abysmal, it plunges, it can be represented by a pit sometimes. And we get these 2 energies, which are kind of in conflict with one another. So we get this hexagram called conflict, and I can only do it briefly with you, but let's just read what the judgment says for the UK economy. And I'll tell you what I feel from this. And I expect you could all interpret this in different ways. So I'm not saying this is my clairvoyance for this. I'm just saying this is when we consult the I Ching. And it says, conflict. You are sincere and are being obstructed. A cautious halt halfway brings good fortune. Going through to the end brings misfortune. It furthers one to see the great man. It does not further one to cross the great water. This is the Wilhelm translation I'm using for this particular one. Now, the UK economy is being obstructed, perhaps. We have had a lot of obstructions, I think. Some would agree, some might not, through things such as Europe has been obstructive to the UK economy. I think America and Biden has been obstructive to the UK economy. There has been a lot of obstructions with being able to do trade deals with India and around the world. So, but Liz Truss, she was defense minister, so she's obviously had time to learn about communicating with other countries, albeit, we're going to send tanks in. But I think it suggests to me that maybe those obstructions could be removed. Okay, so but when we get a hexagram like conflict, that ties in, I think, with what we're already seeing here, because we are in a time when it comes to the economy of conflict. We're getting a conflict between some of us are rich and some of us are poor, and everybody fights each other over who's going to get the pot, as I said. So I think there's conflict ahead. But it says also a cautious halt halfway brings good fortune. So it might not go as completely out of hand as I was saying at the beginning when I was talking about the winter of our discontent and things. It gives the feeling that maybe things could be pulled back. maybe we're going to see some good fortune come out of this. And it says going through to the end brings misfortune. So if we pursue the existing policies, for example, and fight things to the bitter end, and then things could cave in and things could be very, very poor. So I don't know what you think about that, guys. I'm always interested in your opinions as well, both while we're live and also when we come off air. And it furthers one to see the great man. It does not further one to cross the great water. Now, the great man can be multiple things, and the great water can be multiple things. It can often, crossing the great water can mean taking on a huge enterprise, taking on something that's a bit risky. Seeing the great man means trying to apply really to wisdom, to the wise leader. So maybe there's wise leadership shown in this amongst this conflict, and maybe it furthers one. It does not further one to cross the great water. So perhaps Liz Truss is going to kind of do things not so much by confrontation, although this is a hexagram of confrontation, but she may be able to find a way of finding common ground here. So that I'd have thought that's probably how her nature would work. We had what we call a moving line, which means we've got a moving line in the 1, 2, 3, in the fourth place. So we got a number 9 line there, which means it's a yang line changing to a yin line in the fourth place. And again, this is reasonably optimistic because it says one cannot engage in conflict. One turns back and submits to fate, changes one's attitude and finds peace and perseverance, good fortune. So it would suggest that the existing policies, I would have said, interpreting this, have been wrong. That one has, however, made a change of attitude, and that change of attitude is more linked with the idea of perseverance, because the Qing talks a lot about this idea of perseverance. It often talks about that, you know, you can get a goal by just persevering, persevere. So it's saying a perseverance sort of attitude will bring good fortune. So it suggests to me that things could work out all right. It does point to the future too, because you can take that moving line and plot another hexagram, which gives us the hexagram of dispersion, which it can show. This time it now says that we have the power to cross the great water, so things change, and it talks also about success and break. It comes after the hexagram of joy, but it can show success that comes from ending conflict. So I think there's hints there. I better not go on to because I'm going to talk for hours on the I Ching because I love it so much. But I think there's hints there that things could be quite positive, you know, even though, you know, I've said that we're going to have, we're going to have awful times financially. We're going to have awful times with house possessions, strikes and the rest of it. But the Qing seems to say to us, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I asked it within 2022. I didn't want to sort of say British economy, you know, in 1,000 years time. So I would suggest to me that we can sort things within 2022. So hopefully this will not go into a terrible year for 2023, although my gut feeling feels that it might, but I'll look at 2023 another time. But certainly there's room for hope. Okay, there we go. I've rabbited on a lot here, and let's have a look and have a look at some of your comments now, guys. So give me a moment because I've not seen any of them. Okay, that's a quick one. Craig, Liz is a Leo. Any idea that what this means for us? Many thanks for you and Jane. Missed you on Friday. Yeah, sorry we couldn't be on Friday. We did have some commitments that came up. I was pretty tired too, but we did have commitments that we couldn't do. But we'll be back in the studio soon. Actually, we've got it all sorted there, and it's all running again. Yeah, she's a Leo, and Leos. I've always found. I've always personally found Leo women quite difficult to deal with because they are very strong-willed, and I don't like strong-willed people around me. But I think in the current situation, that's going to be quite useful, and they do like the attention, and they do tend to look back to the past a lot. Leos, I've found, and maybe she'll be looking back to past triumphs, as it were, in apostrophes, past triumphs like Thatcherism and things. But I think she may look back to go forward. This is why I wonder whether we're going to start seeing the sort of things that were brought in the Thatcher period with some radical type of reforms. But this time, maybe even some things being nationalised. It's like we've got to buy back the family silver. What's that one about? That's how I feel. Ukraine crisis, food and energy crisis will help to develop new green technologies and push the economy to indigenous manufacturing and the food industry. And I think that's interesting, Vinay, because I think that ultimately we've got to go that way, haven't we? We've got to. I mean, all of us. I think probably most of the people that follow this channel, because you're probably more into this sort of new agey type of things than most people. We look at the food we eat, and you look at it and you think, my God, there's no life in it. There's lifeless food, isn't it? In yogic thinking, you're supposed to eat sattvic food, some things that are living, like bean sprouts and things that have life in them, fresh fruits and freshly picked, hopefully no more than a few hours old even. But we're eating all awful sort of stuff. So we will have to start looking to a bit more of a greener technologies and greener eating and living. And I think all of us yearn for that. And I think we will see changes. Yes, I think we will see changes in the longer term with things like the food industry, because frankly, it's killing us all. It's given us cancer. That's where it comes from. It started in the 1930s when they started mass producing food in the way they do. Anyway, that's an interesting thought, if that's what you mean. Yeah, Leo women take care of business. That is true. They are strong people. I've forgotten what Thatcher was now. She wasn't. No, she was Libran, wasn't she? She was a Libran. They usually like to find harmony, but she was no pussyfooting around with her either, was there? So I think we will see a strong person's. Missed that one. She would have problems if she came up against a Scorpio person, possibly. Yes, possibly. Leos do like to be the sign of the lion, don't they? They like to be everybody's attention on them. They like to be the center of attention. They like to be everybody's look up to them as the king, queen. And I think egos can often come in here a lot with that star sign. But I think Liz Truss seems, I don't know, will she be egotistical? What do you think? Do you think once people get in power, they change so much, don't they? Will she be on the same sort of ego trips we saw as some of the other leaders on all sides of the house? What we got here, he's talking about here. They said they may be able to cure allergy with unprocessed milk and barn dust. I don't know about the barn dust bit, but yeah, I do think milk is one of those things that can be quite, it's got to be used very carefully in our diets. We eat a great deal of carbohydrates. We're going off on a different level. Sorry, but I'm coming in here from America, obviously, I should imagine, Michelle. Will Joe Biden be replaced before the year is over? I don't know. I think he will be replaced, though. I think once the primaries have gone, I don't see. You see, I can't see. I think the Republicans are going to do very well. They're saying in the press, no, the Republicans are going to do really badly because everybody's not going to want to have anything to do with the Republican Party because of Trump, and that it's going to split it all up. But now I think the Republicans are going to do very well, and I see that I see them getting. I think they get both houses, as I've said, and I can't see Joe Biden surviving that. As for you seem to like the Scorpios, I say. Oh, I see someone here from Southampton. Hi there, Lady Benelope. Yes, that's where I am, of course, or nearby. Whoops. I'm trying to click on these, and Maggie 2.0. Okay, yeah, I don't think so. Everybody said that same thing about Theresa May, and Theresa May, I think, was one of the weakest negotiators we've ever seen. I mean, her with over Europe, it was laughable, really. Okay, she had a lot of objections, but it was laughable. You go into negotiations, you tell them what your bottom line is and what you want, and then everybody walks all over you because you've got no. You go and ask for the maximum you can get, and then come down a bit. She gave it all away in one shot, I suppose, my opinion. Yeah, I think there will be a red wave in November. We're talking here about America, aren't we? We're talking about America, not the UK, because here we have red and blue with our politics as well. Kind of keeping quite close to the British stuff, really. Truss is no Maggie, I can tell you. Truss is more like Mrs. May. Yeah, I think you're probably right with that. I'll agree with you because you're from Southampton then. And Pelosi, will she stand in a position? She's already 82 years old, I don't think she wants to leave. She's like our queen. She wants to die in office, doesn't she? I think she'll try to stay. I think she'll try to stay to the bitter end. I think she will try to stay to the bitter end. What we got here? 2022 is different from 1979. The Maggie era had a hard edge. Truss is softer person, which is a good thing. And also, we're in a very, very difficult position because one of the things because I remember the earlier recessions. I remember the times Margaret Thatcher, and I remember the times before that when things were in total chaos and why all those things happened. And at that time, he said, we're going to manufacture our way out of trouble. We're going to export our way out of problems. And that's kind of, first they sold the family silver, that's this national, privatized everything. So they had some cash. Focused on the city, which became a booming sort of industry, more so than it had been before that. But now we've got bigger problems because the problem is this recession is worldwide. And it's very hard to export your way out of problems when you've got people like China in the ring. And it's very difficult to handle your inflation when the whole world's in an inflation situation. And I definitely agree here. I love Boo 2.2 because I think Boo would definitely have a better chance of getting things right. And then, oops, I'm missing them. Do you see us heading for unemployment and deep depression? Well, I was saying it at the beginning. I don't think it's going to be as huge as we think. It's going to be a lot. There will be unemployment, bound to be unemployment out of the situation. Because I see everybody fighting. I'm seeing, businesses are going to go bust. Because a lot will have to go bust if you're coming in with the old union ideas. Now, those union ideas are not as powerful as they used to be, but I still think it will cause trouble. So we will, from that, see unemployment. I see. Yeah, I definitely do think I should really give way to Boo. I do agree with you. I've got to do a bit more with Boo, but he won't ever let me. He won't stand still enough to let me ever film him. So I thought it's coffee. We could have not coffee with Boo. We could have something like Dreamies with Boo or something like that. Anyway, I think I'm going to end it there because I promised myself I'd only come on for a short time today. So thanks, guys, for joining me. We can say our goodbyes in a minute. But I'll try to do a few more of these. I just wanted to sort of touch on the Liz Truss stuff, and we're starting to sort of clear our agendas a bit more, Jane and I. We've had some pretty massively busy times, and I've also, there's some possible television stuff coming up for me, which I can't talk about. But so there's been a lot going on, and we're hoping that we'll be able to get on here a little bit more for you guys. Okay, all right. Who is Boo? Who is Boo? You come here, Nick, and you don't know who Boo is? Boo's our cat, for goodness sake. He's the one with the great knowledge that we ask him psychic questions and he will give us all sorts of ridiculous answers. Okay, thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon, and bye for now. So, would you like to know more? Come and see my website at psychics.co.uk, where you can buy my books. You can also read lots of free articles, and you can join our Patreon community if you like there. You can also book readings with myself and Jane. I do readings by Zoom and by email. Jane does them one-to-one at home. So have a look on the website, you'll find all that. And you'll also find our team of readers who do international work. So you can book a psychic, a medium, an astrologer there. And they're available now for phone readings 24/7. So visit our website, psychics.co.uk. You'll find a link in the description below.